for the 4 o'clock show just talked with gubernatorial candidate Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz about his revamped campaign platform. I'd like to welcome my next guest in live from New York. It is Joe Wilson Jr. It is Joe Wilson Jr., who is taking a hiatus from his role in the Trinity Repertory Company to be involved in the production of the Iceman Cometh on Broadway. I think we sent you off with pomp and circumstance to go down to this production. And folks are just asking, what's it been like? You've been on Broadway before, but I have to imagine every situation is unique. What's it been like to be part of this production?
Wow. Well, first of all, it's so good to be here. I'm getting a little taste of being home, which I miss Providence so much. But this has really been an extraordinary experience. I mean, I was on Broadway almost 18 years ago.
Wow.
With the production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And what's different is I was 32 or 30. I can't even do the math. I was much younger. But also what makes this different is a 4-hour epic Eugene O'Neill play. And so doing this kind of play, this kind of material has been a big challenge, actually. You know, we work as understudies in a vacuum most of the time. We don't get a chance to have the kinds of reps that you would have doing the production every single night. And so it becomes my responsibility to be my own dramaturg. It becomes my responsibility to make sure that I know my lines, I know my blocking, and most of my work is done, my learning is done by watching the production. And so I don't really have a chance to get the work into my body. Versus with Superstar, you know, I was doing it every night, I was dancing every night, I was singing every night. And so this is a very different experience. And it's been a huge, huge challenge. Not to mention the difficulty of the material and the sheer volume of the material. But the stress of, you know, getting that phone call and saying you're on tonight for Denzel Washington, or you're on tonight for Michael Potts, because I'm actually covering two roles in the show.
How much does that encompass, you know, for the person who's not in theater, as you talk about this mammoth production, to absorb and to learn all this material? I mean, talk with us about that preparation process leading up to, you know, opening night. You know, how, to the average person, what does it entail?
Well, you know, I've been in this business for almost 30 years and 25 years. The difficult thing about this process is that, in essence, I'm developing a brand new way of working for myself. I have over the course of my studies, over the course of my career, I've developed a way of working that works for me in terms of a traditional process, but nothing about this process is traditional. So I'm having to really develop and cultivate a whole new way of working. Because in essence, we use all of our senses in the theater to develop a role and to learn material. Sight, smell, taste, touch. And in essence, I've been only given really one of my senses, and that's, you know, hearing and sight, or two of my senses, hearing and sight. But in terms of my touch and movement and where I am on stage, all that's been taken away from me. You know, we have one rehearsal a week that's 3.5 hours to rehearse a 4-hour play. So you imagine we don't get through the entire play in one sitting.
Yeah. And
so with one rehearsal a week, you know, we may get through one act twice, because what you all don't know is there are 8 of us understudying an 18-character play, and many of us are double. The parts are what we call covered and double covered.
Okay.
Meaning some parts are covered by 2 actors, and so every time you go through the play once, we have to go through it again to have actors have a chance to switch parts. And sometimes you're acting, not even looking at the person. You have no idea who they're playing at times, because, you know, in one scene someone's playing Larry, and in the other scene they're playing a totally different character. And so it's really, in every way, it messes with your mind in ways you can't even imagine. And also the difficult thing was, again, you know, I have not been in New York in 13 years. So being in a new environment, I am the only out-of-town cover that we have.
Really?
And so the adjustment for me was not only being in a new city that I haven't been in a very long time, but also learning a copious amount of information. And so, you know, my days are literally spent going over my script all the time, trying to find ways to simulate the work in my apartment. You know, I'm always on my feet working. I'm walking around my apartment. I'm visualizing where I am on stage. And I can't say it enough. You know, when that day comes, if it ever comes, and that's the other drawback about this job, if I ever get a chance to do either of these roles, so much of it will be foreign, and I will be on stage looking at actors whom I've never seen before on stage, literally. And so and also the challenge of this work is I'm a perfectionist. I want to have absolute control over everything that I do.
Yes.
And what this process has taught me is that you can't always have control, and that's good for me. I have so little control in what can happen. I have to have faith, and I am the kind of person who have always wanted to make things happen, and sometimes at the expense of just trusting that it will happen, and trusting that I am good enough, and trusting that I know the information. And so this has been an exercise for me. It's challenged me spiritually. It's challenged me intellectually. It's made me relax. It's forced me to take every day, one day at a time. Because if you try and think too far ahead, it would stress. If you just thought about the sheer amount of information that I have in my brain, you know, if I thought about it like over the course of all of it, it would just freak me out. And so you learn it bit by bit, piece by piece, and you trust that when that day, if that day ever comes, that I am standing on the Jacob stage in front of 1,000 people in a Broadway show, that I will know what I need to know. And if I don't know it, something in my body will take over that will lead me through the process.
We'll be ready to go.
I can't tell you, there isn't anything that's been more scary than that.
Thinking of that day potentially coming, I mean, you must have molded this option. I mean, when this opportunity came to you to go down there and do this, you made that call, you said, I want to go and do it, and you just walk through just, you know, how, you know, to the average person, what it's like to be an understudy, to be ready for that performance. And let's talk about the show. Let's talk about the Iceman Cometh. Rave reviews, critical acclaim. You know, what's it like to be, you've got a great cast at Trinity. We had them on for Ragtime not too long ago here. They all gave you a shout out. What's it like what's it like to be working with this particular cast and crew that, again, this show is just, again, is overwhelmingly been well received?
Well, it's been extraordinary. You know, what's been really interesting is, you know, as accomplished as this cast is and not only in terms of theater, but stage and screen, and working with George and watching this man work with these actors, you know, this play has made a mere mortal out of all of us. You know, I have a story, which is a great story. My first day of showing up at the rehearsal hall, I was there to sign contracts and also there to meet my other understudies and have a meeting with the stage manager. And when I arrived at the new 42nd Street Studios, they sent me to the wrong floor. And so I ended up actually on the rehearsal room floor, and I saw the doors of the hall in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong spot. But I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I saw sitting in front of me Denzel Washington. And I turned to him, and of course I had the biggest grin on my face. And he said, Joe Wilson, right? I said, yeah. He said, Providence, right? I said, yeah. And he said, how's Trinity treating you? And I said, it's great, you know, and we began talking. And, you know, he made a comment to me. He said, you know, he was joking. He said, you're trying to play all the parts there, because he understands that being in a regional company, that I have a chance to play parts that otherwise I wouldn't get seen for in New York. And then we began talking about the play. And he said to me, he said, this play is a killer, and this role is a beast. And that, in a way, made me feel so good, because I had the same exact response. and I didn't have the luxury of being in a rehearsal at that point. But this play has made all of us scared. This play has humbled us all. This play has challenged us all. No matter where you come from, and a lot of these actors, again, have done movies and TV, and they've been around the block. But this play has made us all equals, because this is just an epic piece of work. It's a 4-hour, 4-act play. It's a beast. And you know what's really great about the production, and just talking about the production, that when you read this piece on the page, it's really difficult to get through. You know, Eugene O'Neill, he tends to write in dialect. There are lots of complicated turns of phrase, of the way these characters speak to each other. They speak in a language and in a way that doesn't fall on the contemporary ear in a very it's a difficult play to read. But what George has done with this production is, obviously, we're getting these diverse audiences because some people, yes, are coming because they love the play, but a lot of people are coming because they love Denzel Washington or Colin Meaney or David Morse or Bill Irwin. They love these actors, and so they're coming to the play for all kinds of reasons. And so when you're doing a play like this, you would expect that after 4 hours that some people may not want to make it through the play, or everyone, not a single seat is in the play. So our journey. You've all been cheering, not only for Denzel, but individual characters that they fall in love with. George has made this play so accessible. And the play is actually, as dreary as Iceman can be, a play about a bunch of alcoholic drunks who, if you know the play, the play is also about murder and deceit and so forth. The play is actually really funny. And so George has found the humanity in these characters in a wonderful way that makes it so accessible. And so I am so proud of the production because of that. Oftentimes these kind of epic, sweeping plays can be so off-putting for people, especially in, a setting where you have all these stars involved and folks are coming to see their favorite stars. But they're falling in love with the play. And that's been the most extraordinary thing about this process. And quite frankly, it reminds me of what we're good at Trinity Rep. We do these kinds of plays at the Rep, and our audiences are trained to be able to come and receive these plays, and we pride ourselves on the clarity of the story at Trinity Rep. And George is doing the same thing with this production on Broadway with an 18-character, 4-act, 3-intermission play. And that's what I'm really, really proud of. That at the end, these audiences stand and cheer and roar, not just because it's Denzel, and not just because it's Colin Meaney, and not just because it's David Morse or Bill Irwin or Tammy Blanchard, but they're cheering and roaring because they have gone on a journey. And that just warms me every single night. And it reminds me that not only are we doing great work here, but it reminds me that I come from a legacy and a history and a company and a home that we approach the work in the very same way. And we provide this kind of work to our audiences. We strive to provide that kind of work to our audiences every single play, every single season at Trinity Rep. And so that's what's been the most familiar about this process, is the commitment to storytelling and quality storytelling and accessible storytelling and full human storytelling. And so that's been the most rewarding part for me.
Well, it's been great to catch up, Joe, because speaking of storytelling, a lot of folks kind of are following your New York days vicariously through social media. We've had you here in studio before in Providence. We miss you here in Providence, but wanted to give folks...
I miss y'all so much. I miss you. I'll be back July 1st, and I look forward to my 14th season at Trinity. I'm actually coming back, and I have to give a special shout out. I'm coming back this weekend because I'm hosting, along with Becky Gibble, the Manhattan Avenue Project Gala at the Pell Chafee Performance Center on Monday. And so I'll be back in for a quick 36 hours, and I'll be back to my show here on Tuesday night. But I'm looking forward to being back this weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all this summer and to be back for my 14th season.
Well, Joe, again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to give us a little glimpse into what it's like to be an understudy on Broadway. And we look forward to having you here back in Providence. Joe Wilson Jr., we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.